Hello everybody and welcome back to Quarter Words and Pages. My name is Natalie and today I have my August TBR. You know, this video may be coming a few days into August, but it's here. It's gonna be good. I'm not gonna be talking about as many books in my TBR as I usually do because I am bringing over a lot of books from July because I didn't do a whole lot of reading in July. But, you know, let's get into the TBR. I've kind of broken it down into like categories and sections of books just to make it easier to talk about. So the first category is historical books, and I have two books from this category that I want to read this month. The first is The White Queen by Philippa Gregory, which is the second book in the Cousins War series, and in this one we follow Elizabeth Woodville, who catches the eye of the current king who is involved in all the drama of the Cousins Wars, the Lancasters versus the Yorks, and she marries him and becomes entangled in the political drama of the English court. And she begins to lobby for the success of her family's because she has two young sons that she takes into court. And basically this is Philippa Gregory's like reimagining of what had happened, and there are some mysteries that surround this kind of era, like the missing boy from the tower, and she kind of puts her own spin on it and what she thinks maybe happened into it. And I read the first book in the series, don't remember what it's called, which followed Elizabeth's mother, and I've also watched the TV show that was based off of some of the books in the series, so I'm very excited to read this one. The next one I want to read is a bit of a chunky one, and it's a bit loud because the copy I have is from the library, is just really crinkly, and that is World Without End by Ken Follett. I'm going to put this down because it's heavy and crinkly, and it's huge. It's like over 1,000 pages, and this is the second book in the Kingsbridge series, and the Kingsbridge series is basically just following different events that takes place in the town of Kingsbridge. The first book follows the building of the cathedral, and this book follows a totally new set of characters about a century later as the Black Death hits the town. And yeah, I really enjoyed The Pillars of the Earth, and I want to make sure I'm continuing the series, probably trying to read like one book a year because I feel like that's probably what's most reasonable. Next up is a bit of a science fiction, and the first one I have is The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He, which is like a dystopian type kind of thing. So in this book we're following two sisters who have been separated. First, Cece, who wakes up on the shores of a deserted island, and she has no memory of how she gets here, and so Cece has to explore the island and find a way to get off of it and find her sister. And her sister Casey is currently living in an eco-city, which is like the last unpolluted places on Earth, who are supposed to be homes for people who care about the environment, but really, in fact, it's just people who are lying to try to get into these cities. And there's just a lot of secrets, and the two sisters are trying to find each other, and I've heard some mixed things about this. I've heard some good, I've heard some like it was okay, and I'm really excited to read it just because I care really deeply about the environment. It seems like this is a big aspect of this book. Next up is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, which is the first book in the Expanse series. And in this book, we have colonized the solar system. And one of our main characters is Jim Holden, who is an ice miner out in the Saturn and the asteroid belt. And they discover a secret when they stumble upon a missing ship. And they have to figure out who left the ship there. And then also Detective Miller, who is looking for a girl, and his searching leads him to the deserted ship. And the two characters have to work together and kind of try to stop war from reaching the solar system. I think I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I'm really excited to read it. It sounds like it's going to be really good. I've heard a lot of really good things about this series. So yeah, one to finish out a series is Only Humans by Sylvain Neuvel. And this is the third and final book in the Themis Files, the first book being Sleeping Giants and the second book being Waking Gods, which I have both read and adored. And in this series we follow our main character Rose Franklin, who one day when she was little was riding along on her bike, fell into a hole in the ground, and when she was found to be in the hand of a metal hand. A giant metal hand. About like 15 years later or so, Rose is put on the research team who is trying to research the hand and figure out what it came from and if there are more giant metal parts of bodies hidden around Earth. And this series just like explodes and expands, and just the way the second book ended just has me being like, okay, so I need to read the third book like now. So I'm very excited to read this series. I am absolutely loving it. Another sequel is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, which is like the second book in like the Wayfarer series, which like aren't direct sequels. It's kind of like companion novels, and I guess this one kind of has some spoilerly stuff from the first book, but basically in this one we're following Lovelace and Pepper as they go on an adventure. And that's really all I can say without spoiling events from the first book. Just we're set in a world where like we've just like everyone, like the whole basically galaxy and universe is all like connected, and like we can travel and talk to people and they're like different species and everything, and it's interesting. So yeah, I enjoyed the first one and I'm excited to read this one and see where it takes us, because there are some like political stuff that like happened in the first one that I think will probably bleed into the whole series, so I'm excited to see where that goes. So that was the sci-fi section, and next up, some romance. First up is Intercepted by Alexa Martin, and I have just been drawn to this book because of the synopsis. We're following Marley, who is the girlfriend of an NFL star who she has been with for the last 10 years, but then she finds out that he is cheating on her and has been for basically their whole relationship. And Marley decides she will never date an athlete again. But then someone catches her eye, and that someone is Gavin, who is the new quarterback. And Gavin, he wants Marley, and he is going to show her that he is good, that he is nothing like her traitorous ex-boyfriend. But then there are also the wives of the team members, and they're not happy that Marley is back, and so they're determined to take her down. And so thus is the drama that follows Gavin and Marley's relationship. And I'm so excited this because I absolutely adore like sports romance type things. They are my favorite, and I'm just so excited to read this one, and I've heard amazing things about it. So one that I'm adding on, because I'm kind of gonna do like a themed reading vlog probably later in the month. I'm gonna do like a fantasy romance themed reading vlog because I had a lot of fantasy romance books on my last TBR that I didn't get to. So one that I am adding to the mix is Neon Gods by Katie Roberts, which is a Hades and Persephone romance retelling type thing. So I'm just gonna have to read from the synopsis of this one because it's kind of complicated. So, Society darling Persephone plans to flee the ultra-modern city of Olympus and start over, far from the backstabbing politics of the 13 houses. But all that's ripped away when her mother ambushes her with an engagement to Zeus, the dangerous dark power behind their glittering city's dark facade. With no options left, Persephone flees to the forbidden Undercity and makes a devil's bargain with a man she once believed a myth, a man who awakens her to a world she never knew existed. Hades has spent his life in the shadows, and he has no intention of stepping into the light. But when he finds that Persephone can offer a little slice of revenge he spent years craving, it's all the excuse he needs to help her for a price. Yet every breathless night spent tangled together has given Hades a taste for Persephone, and he'll go to war with Olympus to keep her close. So I'm very excited for this. I've heard really good things about Katie Roberts and her fantasy romance, and I think this one will be a nice addition to that little reading vlog I have planned. I don't know how this one's gonna work out for me, and that is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I absolutely loved Red, White, and Royal Blue, but the premise of this one is not as intriguing to me as I hoped it was going to be. And in this book, we are following cynical August, who has moved to New York City, found out that romances like that are in the movies, they don't exist. But then, one day, she meets a girl on the train. That is Jane. Jane, who just, she's everything that August wants. But then, she discovers there's a problem. Jane is from the 1970s and has been displaced in time in modern world. And it's the romance between the two of us. I don't really know what the plot is of this one, kind of, besides that, but I am cautiously optimistic that I'm gonna love this one because I've heard amazing reviews from it. I have two miscellaneous ones that didn't really fit into other categories. First up, we have a non-fiction, which is Under a White Sky, The Nature of the Future by Elizabeth Kolbert. And I don't really know what this one is about besides like looking at the world we're creating now and how we're like trying to fix mistakes we've made in the past. I think I put this book on my list because I saw Elizabeth Kolbert speak last month and it was amazing. She kind of did a talk centered around this book, and I'm really excited to read it. She was an amazing speaker, and if her speaking is anything like her writing, I know it's going to be amazing. One that is the start to a long series is Daughter of the Blood by Anne Bishop, and yes, this is the copy my library had. You can't really tell what book it is, so I'll just put it down. I'll just read y'all the synopsis for this one because it's a bit vague. The Dark Kingdom is preparing for the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, the arrival of a new queen, a witch who will wield more power than even the High Lord of Hell himself. But this new ruler is young and very susceptible to influence and corruption. Whoever controls her controls the darkness. And now, 3 sworn enemies began a ruthless game of politics and intrigue, magic and betrayal, and the destiny of an entire world is at stake. So yeah, it sounds interesting. I know this is a beloved fantasy romance series. It's longer and I'm excited to read it. Okay, so my classic for the month. I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna read Emma by Jane Austen just because I am craving some more Jane Austen. But I'm also kind of thinking about Wuthering Heights or Jane Eyre, just kind of in that same time period type thing. So I don't know really. And then I do have 2 books I have to start reading because school starts in September and I have summer reading. That's The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger and The Help by Catherine Stockett. I'm not too thrilled to be reading either of these, but what can you do? I'm gonna read them. Now, for the final thing. I didn't do this last month, but I'm gonna do it this month. I have written the name of all the books I own. Yes, we're missing a few. Probably my last 2 Fairy Loot books aren't in here, but that's fine. Draw a random one, and it goes on the TBR. So, let's see what this month is. I'm just gonna pick this one, because I don't really need to be playing around with it. And I got, The Bookshop on the Corner. The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. This is actually perfect, because the last few months I have had another book by Jenny Colgan on the TBR, so I decided not to put one on this month, and look, I got one on it. So this is a book my sister gifted me for my birthday a few years ago. It's actually funny because I started reading it, put it down because I liked it. It wasn't the right time for me to read it, and I haven't really thought about it since. Until a few months ago, I picked up a book, The Loveliest Chocolate Shop in Paris, and read it, and I realized it was the same author as this lady. So I'm like, okay, well, now I'm really excited to read this because I've since read 2 other books by her, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And in this, we're following Nina, who is a librarian, and then she gets let go. She moves to a new village where she buys a van and makes it into a mobile bookshop. And it's just following her and her adventures. I'm sure this book is just going to be absolutely charming, and I'm so excited to read it. So, there we go. That was my TBR. I'll probably read more books than this in August. Probably won't read some of the books on this TBR, but I'm gonna try my best. Thank you all so much for watching. Down below you will find links to all of the books I talked about in this video, as well as my Goodreads and my Bookstgram if you want to follow me there. Subscribe to see more content from me, and I will see you all in the next video very soon. Bye!